busy day as level 4 kicked in today. For more on this, we're now joined via Skype by Gauteng's Transport MEC, Jacob Mamabula. MEC, thanks so much indeed for joining us this evening. A busy day for you, particularly as we start to see people coming in from other provinces to the country's centre of the economy, as it were.
Firstly, let me start by greeting you good evening and thanks for the opportunity. Yes, indeed, with the level 4, having started just early this morning, Premier David Makure directed all of us as MECs to be on the provincial boundaries on all entry and exit points out of any outing. And to that extent, for example, the N4 to Witbank, and of course monitoring the traffic inside as well. To Mpumalanga. And what I can say, it's really just starting with when the level 4 kicked in today during the day, tonight, and up until the weekend is over. We will be on the ground working with law enforcement agencies to make sure that the regulations are being strictly complied with and adhered to. And I think there's good work that's going on there. And to this extent, my own observation has been that I think the law enforcement agencies and our health officials are doing an excellent job to make sure that there's full compliance and that we can combat and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
All right. Gauteng, traditionally, because of its position and also because of the economic activity, tends to get so much more traffic. Is that something that you observed today, that there was a lot of people moving into the province during this first day?
Yes, let me just emphasize the point you're making. Because of our geopolitical location, we are indeed firstly the economic hub of the country, but we are also a major point of interconnection of national routes and all key routes in and out of the province to other provinces, they connected here. So that is why we realize that there will definitely be a spike in traffic. And already this morning, we have, for example, just between 5 a.m. and around 5 p.m., we have seen out of Gauteng about 2,000 vehicles during that time have gone out of the province. And coming into Gauteng, we've seen about 1,182. When you compare this with the time when I was at the boundary, at the roadblock at midnight today, the traffic volumes were very low. And I think there is a gradual spike and increase. And I think even moving into tomorrow and, of course, Sunday, we do anticipate that given the nature of our province and its location, definitely there's going to be an increase in the numbers. One of the things that we have also observed is that just this morning, we received messages from mass transit, particularly taxi ranks, that there were also huge numbers of people that were waiting for the permitted hours and times in terms of taxis to travel. The numbers were reportedly high. What we were expecting was actually maybe there'll be more movement of people in, but we're also seeing people moving out of the province. So our province is definitely going to be quite busy, and that has got everything to do with its character as an economic hub of the country, but also the point of interconnection of main routes.
All right, let's talk about citizen compliance. How has that been today? Any red flags?
Firstly, let me commend the people who are traveling on our roads. One thing that we have seen remarkable is that the wearing of masks, I think the message has reached the people. And I think the people seem to have internalized that message, because all vehicles, taxis, private motor vehicles, trucks, we have seen across the board compliance with the mask. Secondly, compliance to a large extent with the number of passengers that are permitted, particularly with the taxis. For the period that I've been there, I have not seen any non-compliance. I also checked with the law enforcement whether there's been any non-compliance with a permitted 70% load. And to that extent, I think we must commend the people for compliance. There's one issue that is of grave concern. Remember, after 8 o'clock in the evening and to 5 p.m. to 5 o'clock in the morning, there's a regulation there that indicates that period will be treated as a period for the curfew. I think just the reports we have been receiving is that it will seem that that is an area of great concern, because it will seem people are still not complying with the fact that they're not supposed to be on the road, particularly within the period between 8 o'clock and 5 a.m. in the morning. So those people are actually posing a very risk in terms of non-compliance with the regulations that the law enforcement agencies are dealing with. In general, there's improvement in compliance levels, but I think there are new challenges that law enforcement agencies are dealing with.
So one of the things that the Minister of Transport spoke about was that transport can be one of those vehicles that can spread the disease. Is there a concern as the Transport MEC of Gauteng that this virus may be transported into the province? And how are you trying to mitigate that?
Well, firstly, let me confirm the point that, yes, given the nature of transport, particularly public transport, so you have got mass transit points, and these are areas of mass movement, of high interaction. So there is a very big concern and worry and a risk that our public transport spaces, and of course, even within themselves, you could actually have a risk. What we are doing in our province is that since the lockdown was announced, and the mode of transport that has been transporting commuters has been essentially the taxi industry, we have worked with them to roll out a full program on the ground of making sure that, number one, taxis are sanitized. That program is going on very well in all our 881 taxi ranks. We are sanitizing hands of commuters. We are also making sure that for the drivers, we distribute protective clothing. And now the commuters are going to be expected to wear the masks. So to that extent, I can say in our province, and of course, next week, we are improving on the program that we have put in place. For example, one of the issues we want to deal with is that sanitizing commuters, disinfecting vehicles, enforcing wearing of masks and protective clothing for the drivers must not be left to chance, because we could be saying it is happening everywhere. Commuters could have a different experience in other areas. So our level of preparation is we're going to make sure that in the buses, we don't take chances. Tomorrow, we are doing the preparations for Gautrain to start transporting commuters on Monday. So tomorrow we are tying up and finalizing Gautrain preparation. So in our province, I can say we have done really hard work, and I must thank the taxi industry, us operators, Gautrain management. I think we have done our best, but we still have a room for improvement, particularly on enforcing the mask. I think that issue is going to be critical for us next week, and we'll make sure that we deploy enough personnel and resources to enforce this new directive by the president. I would like to also appeal to commuters in Gauteng. No one will be allowed on any public mode of transport in this province if, particularly and most importantly, they are not wearing a face mask. So we want to urge people, please make sure that you have a mask, a cloth, as it has been explained, to make sure that you manage the risk of either infecting other people or being infected yourself. So this issue, you'll see us enforcing it on Gautrain. You'll see us at the taxi ranks, with the bus operators, even with the BRTs in the municipalities. we will make sure that no one ride any of our public transport modes without wearing a face mask.
Do you have enough resources to make sure that the taxis are not overloading or going beyond the minimum numbers they're allowed to have in the taxi at any one time? Because that, I guess, is the highest risk area that we have.
The historic challenge with the taxi industry, and we see it always, is that it has worked on a very wrong practice that it can undermine the laws of this country. The taxi industry tend to play hide and seek, ignore directive regulations. We're even seeing it during the lockdown. The law has actually prevailed on the taxi industry. I can tell you, many of them, vehicles have been impounded. There are those who have been arrested. But there are good men and women in the taxi industry who have fully complied. So to that extent, we will make sure that law enforcement intervene. But I can also say to you, in this province since the lockdown, we have seen also a very new caliber of leadership. We have seen a new discipline coming out. We have seen an appreciation of the period in which we are. We are seeing a taxi industry that's gradually but slowly realizing that it has a strategic role to play and it is a pillar of our transport system. And I can say to you that whilst a new taxi industry has not yet emerged, you still have people taking chances. But I think I must commend the good work that has been done. So to that extent, that is why we are saying next week we're going to reinforce our compliance levels at taxi ranks. But I think generally in Gauteng, the Gauteng taxi industry has shown an appetite to move one step forward. It has not done so to a level where we can actually be satisfied, but things are no longer the same, whilst we are not yet at the ideal level in terms of where we want the taxi industry to be. So the challenge with the taxi industry is this, is that when we work closely with them, when we come closely engage, talk and discuss with them and also share ideas, I can tell you we work far much better. I think the historic problem has been we neglected the taxi industry for far too long. That is why in most instances, they are used to the culture of taking the law into their own hands. But I'm quite sure that we are turning the corner on that issue. We just need to work patiently, very hard, and understand the historic challenges of the taxi industry. We will come closer to the taxi industry, work with them to enforce compliance levels on all the issues that we have to enforce.
MEC, thanks very much indeed for your time this evening and just giving us an insight onto what the challenges you're facing in Gauteng, and hopefully citizens will cooperate and comply. Thanks so much indeed for your time, sir.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks very much.
All right. That's Gauteng's Transport MEC, Jacob Mamabula, speaking to us.